أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: وما كان المؤمنون لينفروا كافة فلولا نفر من كل فرقة منهم طائفة ليتفقهوا في الدين ولينذروا قومهم إذا رجعوا إليهم لعلهم يحذرون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. In the past several years, the world has witnessed great technological advancements. Communication has become easier, transportation has become easier, especially with the advent of the internet and then later on smartphones. Things have become easier to find a piece of information. Any sort of information, religious and not religious, has become very easy. It's at the palm of your hand. You're able to find out dates, information, scientific information, mathematical information, all in the palm of your hand. Now, more recent, we even have artificial intelligence. We have AI. And this has made discovering information even easier. We have apps like ChatGPT, for example, where you can search anything that you'd like, any sort of information, you can discover, you can find out very quickly. Writing an essay, writing an article, writing a book has become a lot easier. Previously, it was difficult. Today, everything is easy, everything is accessible. All the information in the world is accessible through AI and artificial intelligence. You can find out any sort of information through artificial intelligence. Of course, it's not always accurate, but most of the time, it's on point. Of course, with the advancement of technology, although we are benefiting, we are learning, everything has become easier. Writing an article has become easier. Writing a book has become easier. Doing a project for school has become easier. However, we are slowly but surely relying more and more on this technology and on AI. We are doing less research. We are doing less homework. We are less available out in the field and finding information in the real world, and we are more relying on artificial intelligence. Here, today, research has become easy. You use ChatGPT or any of these websites or apps for artificial intelligence, and you can do your research. No need to read a book, no need to refer to an encyclopedia, no need to go out and do experiments. Today, everything has become easier. And because it's becoming easier, we're relying more and more on this sort of technology. In the past, people made an effort to go out and experiment, to go out and research, read books, read compendiums, read encyclopedias, experiment. Today, this need for research has diminished with the use of AI and artificial intelligence. You see, my dear friends, finding a piece of information, finding a piece of evidence, finding a theory or discovering a theory or even being the founder of a theory has so much joy. It has so much pleasure. In the past, when they would search through books, through volumes, through encyclopedias. They would go from library to find a piece of information. This would bring so much joy that I finally found. I have finally found the piece of information that I have been looking for, the hadith that I have been looking for, this evidence that I have been looking for. This is great joy. This is why our scholars like Al-Alam Al-Hilli, Al-Shaykh Al-Tusi, Al-Shaykh Al-Mufid, Al-Sayyid Al-Murtada, instead of becoming businessmen and looking out to make a profitable business, they wrote books. They went after research. They wrote books that till today we are benefiting from because of the joy and pleasure. Finding a piece of information, making a discovery, has joy like none other. Ask any scientist. Tell them we'll give you political power. We'll make you president. We'll make you the CEO of a business, of a successful business. But stop what you're doing and come. They'll say no. They'll say no. I enjoy what I do. I'm discovering things that others have not discovered. That in itself is joy and pleasure. Previously, there were some scholars in the middle of the night when they were surrounded by books, volumes of books, they're buried into books, and they find a piece of information that they've been looking for days and weeks. When they finally find it, they say, أين الملوك وأبناء الملوك عن هذه اللذة? Where are the kings and the emperors and their children from this joy? This is the joy, not the joy that is enjoyed by a king with alcohol and slaves and servants and money and power. It has its joy, but this is a different sort of joy. Today, my dear friends, we have been forbidden from this joy. Today, I need no longer read volumes and books and research and experiment. I have ChatGPT. I ask him for a hadith and he tells me. I ask him for a verse and he tells me. I ask for a theory and it tells me. I've lost the joy of discovery, the joy of discovering information, coming up with new information, something that no one else has beat me to. This is great joy and pleasure, discovering a theory or discovering a piece of evidence. Only scientists would know this. Scientists, mathematicians, scholars would know the joy of making a discovery. Today, we've lost this. Today, we solely rely on AI, and things will only become worse. From now on, things will only become worse. Previously, scholars would spend weeks, months in finding a hadith, in finding a piece of information. They would have to read so many books and articles and look through manuscripts. Previously, books were not published. Today, we have books that are published. From 50 years ago, they started publishing books. Previously, there were manuscripts, lithographs, where there might be one copy of a book. One copy of a book. You have to be very careful that you don't ruin that copy, that lithograph, and that manuscript. They would have to go through these manuscripts to find a piece of information. Al-Allam Al-Amini, the author of Al-Ghadir, Mawsu'at Al-Ghadir, a 15-volume work on Imamah. An excellent piece of work, a masterpiece, one of the greatest masterpieces that was ever published in the Shia world is the book Al-Ghadir, Mawsu'at Al-Ghadir by Al-Allam Al-Amini in 15 volumes. The published version today is 15 volumes. Read of his biography. This book is not just on Ghadir. The first 2-3 volumes are on Ghadir. The rest is on the virtues of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But from where? From Sunni books. From Sunni books. He would have to go from place to place, from library to library, from village to village, sometimes in disguise. Sometimes he would have to pretend that he is not a Shi'i just to find one hadith. One hadith. He put so much effort in his book. Today everything is available. Today we don't do any of this. Today everything is available. As scholars, sometimes finding a verse was hard. Maybe you know the first part of the verse, you don't know the half, the second half. You know the end part, but you don't know the first part. Finding the verse in the Quran was hard if you haven't memorized the Quran. Finding a verse, finding a hadith, finding an opinion What does this scholar say about this? What does this scholar say about this? This was hard. It took a lot of difficulty. I remember when I first became a speaker, sometimes I wanted to search for a verse. There was no apps. It was, at the beginning of the advent of the internet, people were still using, does anyone remember AOL, America Online? Those days, our youth have not even heard of these things. Dial-up. Finding a verse was difficult. I remember there was a book, today it's outdated, called Al-Mu'jam Al-Mufahras. Al-Mu'jam Al-Mufahras, it mentioned you have to know a word in the verse. It will tell you where this word is mentioned and how many verses, and that is how we would be able to find a verse in the Quran. Today there's so many apps of finding the verse and its translation and its meaning and its tafsir. This generation does not know the value of research, does not know the value of discovering a piece of knowledge, discovering a piece of information. Today everything is easy. We have to make sure, my dear friends, that as we advance technologically with AI and everything is becoming easier, we have smart phones, we have smart TVs, we have smart cars, but we have dumb people. We are becoming dumber. Our gadgets are becoming smarter, but we are becoming dumber. I'll give you an example. How many of us today memorize telephone numbers? None. I barely remember my own number. Barely. And sometimes I even forget my own number. I imagine sometimes if I lose my phone, I will not be able to contact any individual because I don't have any phone number memorized. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, we would memorize 10 phone numbers, 15 phone numbers. My spouse, our relatives, our cousins, even our family back home in Iraq, in Pakistan, in Iran would memorize their numbers. Today we can't even memorize. Even if I try to memorize someone's phone number now, I won't be able to. We're becoming dumber. Previously, we would be able to tell the Qibla. Our parents, at any point, if they see the sun, they can tell where's north, where's south, where's east, where's west, and they'd be able to tell the Qibla. Today, no one can tell the Qibla. We don't know. We all use apps. We all use apps that tell us the time of Salah and the time of Qibla. Previously, we wouldn't need to know the time of Salah. Everyone knew the time of Salah, and we had a biological clock that would wake us up. Today, we have to have alarms, and we have to know the exact moment. We are becoming dumber, and our gadgets are becoming smarter. We have to make sure that this doesn't affect us. We are going to pay a heavy price of technology, my dear friends, especially college students, university students. Before, it would take them a week, 2 weeks to write a paper, to research, to find sources. Today you have ChatGPT. You put in a couple of words and you ask ChatGPT to write you an article, to write you an essay. Within a couple of minutes you have a 10-page essay written by ChatGPT. This is very dangerous. Where's the spirit of knowledge? Where's the spirit of education? Tomorrow, what will future doctors do? Doctors who grew up with AI and relied on artificial intelligence, and engineers and scientists and lawyers. How are we going to, as patients, rely on a doctor that grew up in the age of AI? This is very, very dangerous, and we have to be very careful. We as human beings, now that we're advancing technologically with AI, but we have to make sure that we also advance. We don't go backwards. We as humans are going backwards, and AI is advancing. Technology is advancing. Right. Let's come to AI and ijtihad. Can AI help mujtahids and researchers? Absolutely. Absolutely. In ijtihad, mujtahids can make use of artificial intelligence in finding a hadith, in finding a verse, in finding a view, a theory, an opinion. For example, what does Sahib al-Jawahir say on this question? What does Sahib al-Hada'iq say on this question? What does Sayyid Muhsin al-Hakim say on this fiqhi matter, on this usuli matter, on this rajali matter? You may. In fact, mujtahids are invited to make use of artificial intelligence to help them in the process of AI. Even in rajal, in usul, you can ask these apps to summarize for you a theory, an usul, an rijal. I've used it. Sometimes they're accurate, sometimes they're not, and we'll talk about this. Sometimes we'll talk about this. Not all the time it's accurate. At times it's not accurate, but at other times, 60% of the time, 70% of the time, it's accurate. It gives you it summarizes for you a theory, or it contains some truth and some mistakes. But mujtahids may rely. They are invited in the process of ijtihad. They may rely on or make use, I don't say rely, make use of AI and artificial intelligence in finding a hadith, finding a verse, looking at the isnad of a chain of narrator, finding a theory, an opinion, the summary of an opinion. However, they have to be careful of two things. They cannot solely depend on AI for two reasons. Number one, sometimes it makes mistakes, and I'm sure you've seen as well. Sometimes AI makes mistakes. It's not perfect. Sometimes it gives you the wrong answer. And the problem with AI, it doesn't tell you, I don't know. Has ChatGPT ever tells you, I don't know? No. It always knows, but sometimes it knows the wrong information. So you have to be careful that it doesn't give you the wrong information. And number two, scholars have to make sure that they don't lose the joy of discovery, as we talked about. Because there's a joy in discovery. There's a joy in going through these books and volumes and looking for a theory, looking for an opinion, spending those sleepless nights in reading books. Many of our ulama, they would spend the nights when everyone else has fallen asleep. They're up till 3 a.m., 4 a.m., maybe until Salat al-Fajr. They're up, surrounded by their books, surrounded in their library, looking for a verse, looking for a hadith, looking for an opinion, coming up with a theory, supporting a theory. This has joy. Relying solely on AI and artificial intelligence can strip you of that joy. You have to be very careful. طيب. The million-dollar question is that, can we rely on AI for taqlid? Today, we are relying on AI on everything, in physics and mathematics, for school research, to write an essay, to write an article, for historical evidence. At school, at work, we rely on AI. Can we rely on AI for taqlid? Why do I need to perform taqlid of a mujtahid who lives in another country? This is the question. This is the million-dollar question. Who lives in another country where I can simply ask ChatGPT, what do you think of gelatin? What is your opinion on the permissibility of gelatin, or on moon sighting, or when is Eid, for example, Sunday or Monday, or how to pray this salah or that salah or this fasting, something like this. Can we rely on AI? If we are relying on AI in almost every matter, then why not rely on AI in taqlid? I have in the palms of my hand artificial intelligence with me. I can ask them any question that I'd like. But what's the need for a hawza and spending years in hawza and following a mujtahid and performing taqlid, and maybe I can't reach that mujtahid, while I can ask ChatGPT and it will give me all the answers that I need. Is this possible or is this not possible? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. You see, my dear friends, AI cannot replace ijtihad. And it cannot replace mujtahids. Why? Just because I say so? No, I'll explain to you. Why AI and artificial intelligence cannot replace ijtihad. Ijtihad is not a mathematical process. It's not A plus B equals C. It's not a mathematical equation where you put it in a system and AI will be able to give you the laws. This is halal, this is haram. It's an equation. It's not an equation. Ijtihad is a complicated process. It takes many things into consideration. It's not a mathematical equation. If it was a mathematical equation, 1 plus 2 equals 3, you can rely on AI. You put in the information, you put in the necessary information in fiqh and usul and rijal and aqaid, and it will give you the desired fatwa. But it's not that simple. Ijtihad requires research, analysis, looking at the context of the situation, looking at the context. Sometimes you go to the same scholar, two individuals, one, for example, from Iran, and another is from New Jersey. You go to the same scholar and you ask him the same question, he will give two different answers. The one in Iran, he'll give him one answer, and the one in America, he'll give him another answer. Why? Is he contradicting himself? No. Does God have two laws? No. But there's a context. The surrounding is different. You live in a different context. That person lives in another. You live in one surrounding. That person lives in another. How would ChatGPT know this? How would ChatGPT understand this and know the context? It requires taking many things into consideration. For example, let me give you a couple of examples. In Shia Islam, we have primary laws and we have secondary laws. What do I mean by primary laws and secondary laws? Primary laws do not take in consideration factors such as need, necessity, harm. These factors are not taken into consideration. Secondary laws take in consideration matters like need, necessity, harm. Let me give you an example. Shaking hands with the opposite gender. Is this halal or is this haram? What do you say? Haram. Haram. According to all scholars, shaking hands with the opposite gender, if they are not your mahram, if she's not your wife or your sister, you cannot shake her hands. This is haram. This is a primary law. Now, what ulama do is, there's a secondary law. What is that secondary law? For example, you go for a meeting, a interview. For example, don't take this from me as a fatwa. This is only an example. This is only an academic discussion. For example, you live in Germany, you live in France, and you go for an interview for citizenship. A Muslim woman goes for an interview for citizenship, and the male, if you do not shake his hands, you will not be granted citizenship. In Germany, for example, or in France, I don't know. And you've lived in this country for so many years, you might not be granted citizenship. Maybe you might not even be granted permanent residence. You'll be kicked out. So this is harm. And in Islam, لا ضرر ولا ضرار في الإسلام. There is no difficulty and hardship in Islamic laws. This will be a secondary law that ulama, and this is in the Risala al-Amaliyah, check any Risala al-Amaliyah. The first law is you may not shake the hands of a person with the opposite gender. And then immediately afterwards, they say, but if it causes you harm, if you don't shake their hands and it causes you harm, you lose a job, you lose citizenship, you're deported from your country. Here, you may do so just so that you don't fall into harm and necessity. How would ChatGPT know this? How would artificial intelligence know something like this? Primary laws, secondary laws, taking into consideration things like harm, necessity, need. You see, ijtihad requires assessment. It requires analysis. It requires taking so many things into consideration. Legal repercussions, political implications. Let me give you another example. For example, again, this is just an example. Let's say that according to the fatwa of a alim, the legal age of marriage, for example, is 13. 13 for girls, 15 for boys. Let's say, as an example, if that is his reading of Sharia based on a hadith, his fatwa is that the legal age of marriage should be 15 for boys, 13 for girls. But if the law of the land says it's 18, his fatwa will also be 18, because that sort of fatwa has legal ramifications. It has political implications. Hence, he has to take these legal ramifications and legal implications, political implications into consideration, into mind, and he will say, no, my fatwa is that the legal age of marriage is 18 and not 13. How would artificial intelligence know this? This requires human understanding. This requires human ijtihad. Sometimes there's ethical and moral implications. Ethical and moral implications. Let me give you another example. According to most of our ulama, a wife may not leave the house without her husband's permission. We all know this. That a wife, in order to leave the house, she needs her husband's permission. Of course, this does not mean that he put her under house arrest. However, some ulama went out further to make exceptions. They said yes, she needs his permission, out of courtesy. However, if she needs to visit a doctor, if she wants to visit her family members, if she wants to go to a masjid, if she wants to go for ziyarah, if she wants to buy essential matters, here she does not need his permission. Or he must grant her permission. He must grant her permission. These are moral implications. These are ethical implications to be taken into consideration, something that cannot be assessed by AI, an artificial intelligence. So you see, my friends, AI cannot replace ijtihad. It cannot replace human reasoning, human analysis. It cannot. Let me give you an example. This is a story that, they say a man had a servant. He had a servant that he would take with him everywhere. So he went to the masjid. One night he went to the masjid and he had his sajjada with him. And he prayed in the masjid on his sajjada. When leaving, he forgot his sajjada in the masjid. So he went back home. He told his servant, go see, I can't find my sajjada. Go see if it's in the masjid or not. So the servant came back. He went to the masjid. He came back empty-handed. He told him, what did you see? He said, yes, I saw the sajjada is in the masjid. He said, why didn't you bring it to me? He said, you didn't tell me. You only said, go and see if my sajjada is in the masjid or not. You didn't tell me, bring it. Sometimes AI is like this. If you don't give it direct directions, it will be like this. It will be like this. They say the same individual, he said, no, I need a new servant. So they brought him a good servant, a servant that thinks outside of the box. So one day this person got ill. He told his servant, go bring me a doctor. After a couple of minutes, he brought him 3 individuals. He said, who are these 3? He said, well, the first is a doctor because you're ill. The second, I'm worried that the doctor can't cure you and you'll die, so I brought someone to wash your body. And the third is the undertaker to bury you. And there's individuals like this as well. AI can be similar to this. Similar to the first servant, not the second. You ask him literally, he'll give you the little answer. Doesn't take in implications. AI can make mistakes, my dear friends. And hence we cannot rely on it for taqlid. We rely on AI in every other segment, for school, to write an article, to write a book, to write an essay. But for taqlid, and this is the topic for the brothers and sisters that are coming in late, can we rely on AI for taqlid? No. Sometimes AI makes horrible mistakes. Yes, sometimes it's accurate. Sometimes it's accurate. A lot of times it's not accurate. It gives you information that doesn't exist. I've tried it many times. In fiqh, in usul, in rajal. I ask him, for example, to summarize the theory of Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari on, for example, al-bay' al-fuduli or al-maslaha al-sulukiyya. These are usuli principles that we study in Hawza. It'll go off topic. It'll bring information that is incorrect. So you cannot rely on, say that we don't need mujtahids any longer. We don't need mujtahids, we don't need the hawzat. This can all be replaceable with AI. The problem with AI sometimes that it relies on data. How does it work? How does AI work? It relies on data, what's available on the internet. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. A second salawat, please. A third salawat with your loudest voices. We might be needing, we might need a lot more salawat tonight. AI relies on data, information that's available on the internet that might not be correct. That might not be correct. Anyone could put in information. It looks through websites, whatever is available, and then gives you the fatwa, gives you the ruling. And sometimes it's incorrect. It's inaccurate. It's incomplete. Sometimes it's biased. Sometimes it's biased. You ask, for example, ChatGPT. For example, what is the meaning of man kuntu mawla? And you've never asked ChatGPT before. It will tell you, for example, mawla could mean friend. And that's a biased answer. We know that mawla does not mean friend. It has other meanings. It means a guardian. It means authority, someone who has authority. Thus, AI lacks human understanding. It lacks human analysis, to take in information, to assess, to analyze, to look at the context. You see, my dear friends, sometimes fatwa, you read a verse and you find a hadith, but you have to understand the context of the hadith. Why was the hadith stated in this way and not in another way? You see, this is important work that we do in Hawza. In Hawza, we don't just find a hadith. And this is why it's dangerous for some individuals to say we don't need ijtihad, we don't need taqlid, and we don't even need artificial intelligence. We have books of hadith. I can refer to a book of hadith. First of all, books of hadith are in Arabic. You have to master the language. Second of all, there's a chain of narrators. There's ilm al-rijal involved. How do you decipher what is a hadith that is authentic and a hadith that is not authentic? Number three, understanding the context of the hadith. Why the Imam said this. Why the Prophet said this. This is important. AI does not take these things into consideration. And finally, I conclude. Taqlid, my dear friends, is not just an intellectual fatwa to tell you this is halal, this is haram. Taqlid is leadership. It's the guidance of the community. It's leadership of the community. It's looking out after the well-being of the Shia community. This is taqlid. Taqlid is giving your khums. Marja'iyah collects your khums, establishing foundations, establishing organizations that look after the well-being of the Shia community. Taqlid is not just receiving a fatwa, receiving an intellectual fatwa. There's a lot more. There's guidance. There's leadership behind taqlid. AI might give you a fatwa, but can it guide? Can it lead the community? Of course, it does not. And hence, AI cannot be a replacement for taqlid. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم اجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل أن تكتبنا من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم المشكور سعيهم المغفور ذنوبهم المكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية وتوسع في رزقي وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. الفاتحة مع الصلوات.